Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Awakening Heart Community of Mindful Living here at Dallas Meditation Center. Today is February the 28th, already almost into March tomorrow, and already we've had winter storms and thunderstorms and hail all within just a few weeks. So what a wonderful world with all kinds of interesting things. So glad you could join us tonight. And if you're here for the first time on YouTube and you just found us tonight and are here live, welcome. And then if you find us later in the week or some other time you catch this video, welcome to you as well. We will do our usual practice of a meditation and a talk. And then later on, after the talk, we will invite people to come over to Zoom for interactive sharing. So anyway, so just enjoy your time here tonight. And I welcome you to check in the chat window and let us know that you're here. And maybe a little bit later I'll be able to read those. But for now, just sit back and relax. And we will be beginning here with 3 sounds of the bell, and Lisa will lead us in our opening affirmation. And if you know it, go ahead and say it along.
Noble community, we gather here now to honor the way of peace and nonviolence, the way of wisdom and compassion, the way of joy and beauty. In solidarity with one another, with all humanity, and with all life on earth. Friends on the path, we gather here now to deepen our solidity like a mountain and to renew our freshness like a flower. Through mindful sitting and walking, mindful singing and breathing, and mindful speaking and listening. Family of awakening, we gather here now to celebrate the one infinite light that shines through many religions and cultures, to cultivate the wisdom of our many teachers, both ancestral and contemporary, and to affirm the capacity within ourselves and all persons of every race, gender, orientation, and tradition to realize full and complete enlightenment.
Well, hello everyone. I hope you've all recovered from the bad weather. I hope you don't have any broken pipes still. So many things that we've had to kind of deal with and overcome in the last week. So I sure hope you are well and safe and everything is kind of putting itself back into place. It's good to be done with that. It feels like to me that we are done with icy weather, but I suppose it could happen in March. I don't know that I've ever remembered that it happening in March, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you so much for being here tonight, and we will continue with our evening, and maybe see if Cornell wants to introduce some people that have joined us.
Sure, I'll do that. Welcome to Nick, who says grateful for this evening. John bowing in from Plano and says namaste. Catherine bowing in, grateful to be here. Arn, namaste. Barbara bowing in, so grateful for electricity. Jen says bowing in, glad to be with you all. Jyoti, thank you, TM Dallas Meditation Center, for always being here. Stephanie says grateful to be here, and Sandy says namaste. Mike bows in, and Harry is glad to be here. So really glad to see all of you, and you can continue checking in if you arrive later, and we'll catch up following the meditation.
So we are ready to begin our meditation, and Jennifer has something special in store for us tonight. I want to read something that I just discovered when I was looking through this folder, which might give you a clue about what she's going to do. This is from Thich Nhat Hanh. Take my hand. We will walk. We will enjoy our walk without thinking of or arriving of anything anywhere. Walk peacefully. Walk happily. Our walk is a peace walk. Our walk is a happiness walk. And then our contemplation before sitting. The Sangha is invited to go back to our breathing so that our collective energy of mindfulness brings us together as an organism, going as a river with no more separation. Let the whole Sangha breathe as one body, generate peace as one body, be free as one body. Let us transcend the boundaries of a delusive self, liberating ourselves from the superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and the equality complex. We are aware that the happiness and suffering of all people is also our own happiness and suffering. We see ourselves in all people and all people in ourselves. We are one with those caught in situations of oppression. We are also one with the oppressors. We are one with the wise and good people who are present everywhere in the world. We are one with those who are able to embrace the whole of this world with their heart of love and their two arms of caring action. We are a people with enough peace, joy, and freedom to be able to offer fearlessness and the joy of life to living beings around us. We see that we are not alone. The love and the joy of great beings who are present in this world are supporting us, not allowing us to drown in despair, and showing us the way of understanding, compassion, and right action.
Dear ones, dear Thai, dear Sangha, dear friends, we have such a wonderful opportunity tonight now to come back into ourselves and come back into this present moment. And how we're going to be doing it. It was such a lovely time with Terry a couple weeks ago doing walking meditation. So we're going to begin with a walking meditation, and it's going to be joined by some beautiful music by Cornell that he's going to have going for us when we do our walking. And so if you're like me, be sure to unplug your earphones so that you can hear the beautiful music as you're walking. And if you are not in the mood to walk, that is fine. Please feel free to lay down if you need a rest or to sit. After the walking meditation, the music will end, and then I'll invite you to, just go ahead and find your seat, and then we'll do a sitting meditation, a guided sitting meditation at that point. When we walk, we're in the present moment. We take a step, we breathe in. We take a step, and we breathe out. And it's very simple, very sweet, very uncomplicated. And I want to encourage you to resist the urge to pick things up. I know we're all at home, and so there's a tendency to think, oh, I want to just, as I'm walking, I'll just put this glass over by the sink, or I'll just pick up this sock. But I want to just encourage you to resist that temptation. This is a part of practicing building up our patience, to not act on every little thing that comes to our mind. And so just continue to take a step and breathe in, and take a step and breathe out, and enjoy the music. So it's very simple: walking, breathing, and listening to the music. You may also just really want to remind yourself the Buddhist saying, I am here, I am home. So I'm going to ring the bell 3 times, and then Cornell will begin the music, and enjoy your walk. As you're finding your seat after that beautiful meditation walk, I'll just reflect on how I'm guessing we're all feeling, which is immense gratitude for Cornell's talent and that we get to enjoy that music. I don't know about you, but I felt my heart lifting and my arms wanted to go out and up. And I felt happy, as Bobby described from the reading she did with Thich Nhat Hanh, as I found each my feet kissing the earth and listening to that music. So I know we're all feeling so much gratitude right now. So as we always do, which is helps with keeping things simple, is to find our seat. And we know how to do that. We know how to find that cozy and comfortable spot of sitting on our cushion, on our chair. And so we always begin with the base. So feeling the base of your body solid on either the ground or the chair, knowing and feeling that sense of gravity with the space that connects with the earth. So taking a moment to breathe into that base. Getting yourself situated. Taking the time to Get that just right so that you can be relaxed while you sit. Feeling your feet, whatever part of your foot is touching the ground, feeling that, noticing that contact. Moving up with your knees, and then your thighs and your hips. Letting your hips rest on whatever solid ground you're sitting on. Then allowing your shoulders to be over your hips with your posture straight, but not too straight and not too bent, in that place of balance, with your shoulders reaching down. Take a breath or two with instilling this sense of regalness. And respect for setting up your meditation posture. And then allow the crown of your head to energetically reach up so that you have a very nice, long torso that's reaching up while your shoulders reach down. Your hips support you. And the legs underneath your hips support you by making contact with the ground, the feet. And then bring your chin in just slightly and rest your tongue. Your palms laying on your thighs or cupped, however it feels comfortable to you. And breathing with this whole posture now, having taken the time to move into it, which this routine helps us to keep things simple. And then we can begin to focus on the breath now. Again, keeping to the practice that we know. Breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. we practice observing the breath. Breathing in, I know that I am breathing short or shallow or long, deep. Just noticing the quality of your breath as you breathe in and the quality of your breath as you breathe out without having to change it in any way. Just noticing. Breathing in, I notice the quality of my breath. Breathing out, I am aware of the quality of my breath. Breathing in, I'm noticing that my breath is becoming deeper, longer. Breathing out, I notice that I'm breathing deeper and longer. Breathing deeply, I bring a gentle smile to my face. I cultivate patience by not worrying about when the meditation's going to be over. Rather, just focusing on this in-breath and this out-breath. Nowhere to go, no place to be, just this breath in and out. And this breath in and out. No matter how your meditation is going, bring a friendliness to it, a non-judgment, a compassion. You may say to yourself, may I and all beings be at ease. May I and all beings be at peace. May I and all beings be safe. Breathing with a friendliness to yourself and others cultivates compassion. May I and all beings be at ease. May I and all beings be at peace. May I and all beings be safe. Now let us enjoy Bobby's sweet melody of the Brahma Viharas.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. Brahma Vihara Maitri. Brahma Vihara Karuna. Brahma Vihara Mudita. Brahma Vihara Upeksha. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that very lovely meditation. And now we will do the refuge chant to the three jewels, the three jewels being the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. The Buddha meaning our Buddha nature that lives within all of us, that helps us on the path to freedom from our suffering and our problems. The Dharma meaning the teachings we hear here, and also the words we use when we communicate with our friends and families and coworkers. And the Sangha, which is our community, everyone here tonight, those who may find us later, and in addition to our friends and family, everyone that we come in contact with in our daily lives. So please join me in the refuge chant. We take refuge in the Buddha, the awakening heart of infinite light, that which shows us the way in this life. We take refuge in the Dharma, the awakening path of infinite light, the way of understanding and of love. We take refuge in the Sangha, the awakening community of infinite light, those who live in harmony and awareness.
Thank you so much, everybody, for these lovely practices. Yeah, I agree with Jennifer that I just felt a deep sense of gratitude, especially during walking. I think it's just been too long since I did a walking meditation. So we're happy to welcome Nick Belgard, who will speak to us tonight. Nick is kind of an ambassador for our Sangha since he now lives in Arkansas. And I'm so happy that he can still join us via technology. And I'm looking forward to his talk. I've always enjoyed reading the Tao Te Ching for many, many years. And so I'm really looking forward to what he has to share about it. So thank you so much, Nick. I'll turn it over to you.
Hi. everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Bobby. I'm so grateful to be here. And just that beautiful music and the beautiful meditation is still kind of coursing through my veins as I begin this talk. So this week's topic is Friends on the Path. This month's topic is Friends on the Path. And I have really enjoyed a lot of the previous friends who have come into this Zoom space, this YouTube space, and the talks that they gave. One line that really stuck out to me was from Robin Hackett when she sang her song, her beautiful music as well, and gave the line, "I met a stranger on the road, he brought me home." I met a stranger on the road, he brought me home. I really liked that line, and it got me thinking about the difference between friends and strangers, and how sometimes a stranger can become a friend, and how in fact, pretty much everyone I know now that I call my friend, which I'm grateful is a lot of people, at one point they were complete strangers to me, which is something pretty interesting to reflect on. And that speaking to you all now, at one point I was a stranger to many of you. To some of you who are tuning in and meeting me for the first time, perhaps I still am a stranger. And that kind of makes me think, what kind of presence can I bring to this space so that I can turn myself from a stranger into a friend, so that I can turn you all from strangers into friends. I was thinking about the stories of Jesus and the Buddha and many other sages, and how they'll walk up to people and have an interaction with people and utter one line to them, and suddenly, for instance, the Buddha utters a single line, and these people who originally perceived the Buddha as a stranger, they're instantly turned into friends of the Buddha. They want to know what he's about. They want to know where he's coming from. They want to know how they can live a life like him. And same with Jesus, walking along and saying to Simon Peter, "Come along and we'll be fishers of men." And he turns and he leaves his job and he leaves his entire life and follows Jesus. So these elements of friendship must be pretty powerful. I've encountered many strange things in my life, some things that I've come across once and then continued moving on. But there's many things that I encounter, things and people that I encounter, and I want to continue to return to that, continue to return to whatever it was that I encountered. So a few of those things are Buddhism, the mindfulness practice, the element of returning your attention to the present moment. When I heard that, and when I read this book for the first time by Thich Nhat, The Miracle of Mindfulness, which I'll read from later during this talk, I was just struck by the power of that message of anchoring your mind in the present moment, and just how necessary that is to life. I've had a similar encounter with many of my friends, from as little as 4 years old to people that I met in college, to some people that I've only known for a month or so. It's this quality within them that makes me want to continue a relationship with these people. Similarly, reading the Gospels and also reading the Tao Te Ching have been things that I think, wow, I need to return to this again and again, week after week, month after month, year after year, because in that relationship, I find this sense of friendship. And so the Tao Te Ching, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I think I'm trying to get it right, was a strange book to me at first. When I first heard of it, I didn't know what it was about. It was a book from, 400, the 4th or 6th century BC. And I read about the author, who's also kind of not really known. His name is Lao Tzu, but if you look back in history, it seems that he might have tried to erase his name. So it's not really clear if he was an actual person, or kind of if he was the real author of the book. So this strange book comes to me from way back in history, and I start reading it. And suddenly there's those lines that are ringing and coming to me and making me want to cultivate this relationship with this book, continue to come back to this teaching. It's just so deep and so powerful, so profound. It's something that I want to continue to meditate on. So that's the source of today's talk. The stranger of this far off book becoming a friend. And now it's such a good friend that I want to share this knowledge with you all, this wisdom with you all. So there's many pages in the Tao Te Ching. I thought I would focus on this one from chapter 67. And it says, I have 3 treasures to maintain and conserve. The first is compassion. The second is frugality or simplicity. That's another translation. The third is not presuming to be first under heaven, which is humility. So today I want to talk about these 3 treasures and what they've meant to me, and just kind of share stories around these to just note their impact on my life, and maybe share some nuggets with you all, some treasures with you all that you can carry forward into your own lives as well. So the chapter continues. It says, compassion leads to courage. Frugality or simplicity allows generosity. Not presuming to be first creates a lasting instrument. Nowadays, people reject compassion but want to be brave, reject frugality but want to be generous, reject humility and want to come first. This is death, says the Tao Te Ching. And then this is the final line. I really enjoyed this line. Compassion, attack with it and win. Defend with it and stand firm. Heaven aids and protects through compassion. Wow. Maybe some of you all can see, just reading that, you get this sense of like, wow, what is that about? That's something that I want to know more about. And so let me share a story that might help with this. So let's start with compassion. Compassion is a word that means suffering together. You hear it a lot in the Buddhist term. And I think compassion can kind of be a link that unites a lot of different spiritual and religious paths. Suffering together, being with another person in their suffering, and not only being aware that that person is suffering, but also taking steps to work to ameliorate their suffering, to help their suffering in some way. So there's the concept of empathy. A very empathic person can understand that someone else is suffering, but compassion is the next step, where you take an action, you take a step to help that person to feel, to relieve their suffering, to subdue their suffering, to help their suffering. I think that might be a mark of true friendship as well. True friendship involves some level of compassion, to be able to look at another friend's suffering and maybe not run away, but try to help them in the best way that you can. So I want to share a story. It's a bit long, but it's a great story that I really enjoyed, from this book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, which was a great friend to me when I was suffering. It introduced me to Thich Nhat Hanh, which introduced me to this whole community in Dallas Meditation Center. And I'm just really grateful for this book. So let's go for it. This is from chapter 7, and it's a short story by Leo Tolstoy, and it's called 3 Wondrous Answers. Okay. So one day it occurred to a certain emperor that if he only knew the answers to 3 questions, he would never stray in any matter. The 3 questions are: what is the best time to do each thing? Who are the most important people to work with? And what is the most important thing to do at all times? Wow. I think I've asked myself some of those questions at various times in my life too. The emperor issued a decree throughout his kingdom announcing that whoever could answer the questions would receive a great reward. Many who read the decree made their way to the palace at once, each person with a different answer. In reply to the first question, one person advised that the emperor make up a thorough time schedule, consecrating every hour, day, month, and year for certain tasks, and then follow the schedule to the letter. Only then could he hope to do every task at the right time. I know I've done that, created this great, beautiful schedule to try to make my time great. Another person replied that it was impossible to plan in advance and that the emperor should put all vain amusements aside and remain attentive to everything in order to know what to do at what time. Someone else insisted that by himself, the emperor could never hope to have all the foresight and competence necessary to decide when to do each and every task. And what he really needed to do was to set up a council of the wise and then to act according to their advice. Someone else said that certain matters required immediate attention, decision, and could not wait for consultation. But if he wanted to know in advance what was going to happen, he could consult magicians and soothsayers. Okay? But the emperor didn't really like these answers to the first question. The responses to the second question also lacked accord. One person said that the emperor needed to place all his trust in administrators. Another urged reliance on priests and monks, while others recommended physicians. Still others put their faith in warriors. One person said that the emperor needed to, one person said that the third question drew a similar variety of answers. Some said science was the most important pursuit. Others insisted on religion. Yet others claimed that the most important thing was military skill. The emperor was not pleased with any of these answers, and no reward was given. He waved all these advisors away. And after several nights of reflection, the emperor resolved to visit a hermit who lived up on the mountain and was said to be an enlightened man. The emperor wished to find the hermit to ask him three questions. The three questions. Though he knew the hermit never left the mountains and was known to receive only the poor, refusing to have to do anything to do with persons of wealth or power. So the emperor disguised himself as a simple peasant, a simple stranger, you might say, and ordered his attendants to wait for him at the foot of the mountain while he climbed the slope alone to seek the hermit. So here comes the emperor, a stranger, walking along the path, and what's he going to find? Reaching the holy man's dwelling place, the emperor found the hermit digging a garden in front of his hut. When the hermit saw the stranger, he nodded his head in greeting and continued to dig. The labor was obviously hard on this old hermit. He was an old man, and each time he thrust the spade into the ground to turn the earth, he heaved heavily. I love that little moment. You can just picture this old man on this mountain going, oh, just heaving out. It's just so hard for him to till this earth. He's asking for compassion without words. You can just tell by his actions. The emperor approached him and said, I have come here to ask your help with three questions. So the emperor starts right away. Come on, give me these three questions. When is the best time to do each thing? Who are the most important people to work with? What is the most important thing to do at all times? You can see how anxious the emperor is to get this answer from the old man. The hermit listened attentively, but only patted the emperor on the shoulder and continued digging. The emperor said, you must be tired. Here, let me give you a hand with that. The hermit thanked him, handed the emperor to the spade, and then sat down on the ground to rest. After he had dug 2 rows, the emperor stopped and turned to the hermit and repeated his 3 questions. The hermit still did not answer, but instead stood up and pointed to the spade and said, why don't you rest now? I can take over again. One hour passed, but the emperor continued to dig. 1 hour passed, then 2. Finally, the sun began to set behind the mountain. The emperor could put down the spade and said to the hermit, I came here to ask if you could answer my 3 questions. But if you can't give me any answer, please let me know so that I can get on my way home. You can see the frustration coming from the emperor in this question. Come on, just give me the answer. I got to get out of here. I got to get back to leading the country. The hermit lifted his head and asked the emperor, "Do you hear someone running over there?" The emperor turned his head. They both saw a man with a long white beard emerge from the woods. He ran wildly, pressing his hands against a bloody wound in his stomach. Wow, this man with this long white beard, bleeding, sprinting along the path. It's pretty strange what kind of people you might encounter along the path. The man ran toward the emperor before falling unconscious on the ground, where he lay groaning. Opening the man's clothing, the emperor and hermit saw that the man had received a deep gash. The emperor cleaned the wound thoroughly and then used his own shirt to bandage it, but the blood completely soaked it within minutes. He rinsed the shirt out and bandaged the wound a second time and continued to do so until the flow of blood had stopped. At last, the wounded man regained consciousness and asked for a drink of water. The emperor ran down to the stream and brought back a jug of fresh water. Meanwhile, the sun had disappeared and the night air had begun to turn cold. This frigid night is coming. The hermit gave the emperor a hand in carrying the man into the hut, where they laid him down on the hermit's bed. The man closed his eyes and lay quietly. The emperor was worn out from a long day of climbing the mountain and digging the garden. Leaning against the doorway, he fell asleep. When he rose, the sun had already risen over the mountain. For a moment, he forgot where he was and what he had come for. He looked over to the bed and saw the wounded man also looking around him in confusion. When he saw the emperor, he stared at him intently and then said in a faint whisper, "Please forgive me." "But what have you done that I should forgive you?" the emperor asked. "You do not know me, your majesty, but I know you. I was your sworn enemy, and I had vowed to take vengeance on you, for during the last war you killed my brother and seized my property. When I learned that you were coming alone to the mountain to meet the hermit, I resolved to surprise you on your way back and kill you. But after waiting a long time, there was still no sign of you. So I left my ambush in order to seek you out. But instead of finding you, I came across your attendants who recognized me, giving me this wound. Luckily, I escaped and ran here. If I hadn't met you, I would surely be dead by now. If I hadn't met you, my sworn enemy, my stranger on the path, I would surely be dead by now. I had intended to kill you, but instead you saved my life. I am ashamed and grateful beyond words. If I live, I vow to be your servant for the rest of my life, and I will bid my children and grandchildren to do the same. Please grant me your forgiveness." Wow. The emperor was overjoyed to see that he was not so easily reconciled with the former enemy. He not only forgave the man, but promised to return all the man's property and to send his own physician and servants to wait on the man until he was completely healed. So you can see the compassion coming through in this emperor. He wants the best for this man, and he's helping him. He's not just looking at the wound and saying, "Wow, that's a pretty bad wound. You must be hurting." He's sending all his doctors to wait on the man until he gets better. Before returning to the palace, the emperor wanted to repeat his 3 questions one last time to the hermit. This crazy ordeal has happened. Can I still get my 3 questions answered maybe now? He found the hermit sowing seeds in the earth they had dug the day before. The hermit stood up and looked at the answer at the emperor. "But your questions have already been answered," the hermit said. "How's that?" the emperor asked, puzzled. "Yesterday, if you had not taken pity on my age and given me a hand with digging these beds, you would have been attacked by that man on your way home. Then you would have deeply regretted not staying with me. Therefore, the most important time, that was his first question, what's the most important time to do things? So therefore, the most important time you were digging the most important time was the time you were digging the beds. The most important person was myself, the hermit says, and the most important pursuit was to help me. Later, when the wounded man ran up here, the most important time was the time you spent dressing his wound. For if you had not cared for him, he would have died, and you would have lost the chance to be reconciled with him. Likewise, he was the most important person, and the most important pursuit was taking care of his wound. Remember that there is only one important time, and that is now. The present moment is the only time over which we have dominion. The most important person is always the person you're with. Who is right before you? Who is right before you? For who knows if you will have dealings with any other person in the future? Wow, that's powerful. The most important pursuit is making the person standing at your side happy, for that alone is the pursuit of life. So we come back to this message of compassion from this teaching. The present moment is the most important time, the only time over which we have dominion. The most important person is always the person you're with, who is right before you. And the most important pursuit is making the person standing at your side happy, for that alone is the pursuit of life. Wow. So there you have it. That is a very powerful story, and I'm glad I got to share that with you all today. That is the first treasure of the Tao, compassion. And to me, that's the easiest one to talk about. So I shared this example. So the next treasure of the Tao is simplicity or frugality. And when I think of frugality and simplicity, I think of whenever I go backpacking out in the wilderness, I'm able to get rid of a lot of things that I think are necessities for myself, such as technology, electricity, all these things that I thought that I needed in that moment for my personal well-being. And I put away those things and I try to get to what is simple, what is fundamental in life. And I eat very simple foods and I spend time just backpacking, walking through the wilderness. And when I do that, I come to this realization that I am rich. I feel rich in my life because my needs are met. And because my richness comes not from dwelling on material goods and trying to accumulate as much material goods as I can, which is kind of a message that our culture tells us, try to always be getting bigger, better, faster things and more. But what I learn when I go backpacking in this simple manner is that I am rich, and my richness comes from my relationships with the planet, with the earth, with nature, and with those around me. Yeah. I also thought that sharing a couple lines from the gospel might be helpful as well in terms of this simplicity, because I feel like some of these lines from Jesus really capture the essence of simplicity. And it can also be seen in the Buddhist monks and many other ways of life. So this is from the Sermon on the Mount, and he says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven," kind of like these three treasures of the Tao. You can't really take this away from people. "Where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I think simplicity involves putting your treasures in things in heaven, or in qualities of yourself that can't be taken away, such as loving kindness, such as presence, mindfulness, such as compassion. no one's going to be able to come and steal those things away from you. And it's simple because they can't be taken away, and you can continue to build on those. So he says, do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Wow. So I hear that. I want to return to it. I want to make these sayings a friend of mine because they remind me of things that are very important in life. I think good friends also remind you of things that are very important. And so simplicity here tells us don't rely on material things for satisfaction. They won't satisfy. Rely on treasures in heaven, such as enlightenment, the path towards enlightenment, these qualities of the Buddha, Jesus. And don't worry about tomorrow. Fix your thoughts on today. Live within this day and handle today as best you can. And then tomorrow will come with its own thoughts. To me, that's like profoundly simple and profoundly hard as well. It's really difficult to return my attention back to today, back to the present moment. But luckily, I have this mindfulness practice, this community of mindfulness practitioners helping to bring me back to the here and now, back into today. And I'm really grateful for that. So to me, the practice of mindfulness meditation is a practice of simplicity. We're simply sitting. We're simply returning to our breath. We're simply scanning our body, making sure we're still here. We're not trying to cling for more than we need. We're not trying to run away from any feelings or thoughts that come up. We're simply sitting and observing. It's the essence of simplicity to me. The last treasure of the Tao. So we had compassion with that story. We had simplicity with some lines from the gospel, some of my reflections. And then we had humility, which is not presuming to be first under heaven. William Blake says, the sublimest act is putting another before yourself, which I think great relationships teach us, learning how to put the needs of others before ourselves in some ways, and not trying to be first all the time. Actually, I won't say that part. So not presuming to be first under heaven. But this is a very difficult thing to practice as well. And I want to quote Benjamin Franklin on here. He was, many of you probably know who he is. He was I don't really need to describe who he is, but I read part of his autobiography and some things really stuck out to me about his life. He made a list of all these virtues that he wanted to practice in his life and things that he wanted to cultivate. And one of them was humility. And he said this about humility. He said, there is perhaps no one of our natural passions so hard to subdue as pride. Pride is the opposite of humility. A very proud person is putting themselves first. When you're proud of yourself, when you're building yourself up, you're putting yourself first. And that is the opposite of humility, which is trying not to put yourself first, trying to put yourself second, third, or lower. And he says, in reality, this is the hardest passion to subdue, is pride. Disguise it, struggle with it, beat it down, stifle it, mortify it, much as one pleases, it is still alive and will every now and then peep out and show itself. This is definitely true in my own life. You will see it perhaps often in this history. For even if I could conceive that I had completely overcome my pride, I should probably be proud of my humility. Proud of my humility. So bragging about how humble one is causes you to no longer be humble. Or bringing up your humility as this great thing that you possess causes you to not be humble anymore. So it's kind of a counterintuitive thing. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about humble people as well, because oftentimes they're not directly visible. They can be invisible sometimes, doing their work, putting others first. And it's kind of takes a very important sensitivity to be attuned to someone who is humble, who is practicing this. And it's also kind of similar to the quote above from the Tao Te Ching, which said, people reject humility and want to come first. But then it says, not presuming to be first creates a lasting instrument. So something to ponder, something to consider. Another great thing that comes from the Tao in terms of humility is the concept of water and how we can emulate water, be like water. Water always takes the lowest place. No matter where you see it, it's always sinking lower, trying to take the lowest place, racing to go below everything else. And you might think that something that does that would make it weak, but in fact, water is one of the strongest and most powerful substances in the world when you think about it. A long time ago, I went to the Grand Canyon and I stood over this canyon, just I couldn't even really kind of fathom what I was looking at just because it was so great and so beautiful. But when I'm in these moments of awe, one big question that comes to my lips is how? Like, how did this happen? How did the Grand Canyon, how was that made? This huge, beautiful canyon, how was this thing created? And the answer is, it was created by water. That's like the short answer. It's created by water. Water always takes the lowest place, rushing down. It's the softest substance, one of the softest substances in the world. And it carved these hard rocks, these hard canyons. It carved them into these beautiful structures. So water is this humble substance which we can emulate, which we can try to be like. And in that way, we can cut through some of the hardest grime and difficulties in the world. So those are the three jewels, the three treasures of the Tao, which come to us from the Tao Te Ching, chapter 67. And yeah, so I hope for those of you all who didn't know me before this, I've become perhaps a friend. And for those of you who are already my friends, perhaps you just enjoyed this message. And I wanted to close with another reading. And this is also from the gospel later on. And one thing I was kind of talking with a friend of mine who mentioned to me that he thought that many people nowadays don't know what true love and friendship is, right? So sometimes you can have many Facebook friends, but in fact, they might be complete strangers to you, but you still call them friends, perhaps. It's kind of a paradox. So I thought I would share this line, and maybe we can use this as a starting point to kind of talk about in our Zoom meeting, if you all want to tag along over there. Just this question, like, what is love? I think compassion, humility, simplicity are qualities of love, and friendship has genuine love in it. And so the answer, here's the quote from Corinthians. It says, love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up. That's like we talked about with humility. Someone who's humble doesn't parade themselves and they don't puff themselves up. It doesn't behave rudely. Love does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Kind of like this force of water, enduring through the hard rocks, carving this beautiful path. And it says, love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will fail. Where there are tongues, they will cease. Where there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man or an adult, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. And now abide faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. So love, friendship, humility, compassion, simplicity, strangers, friends. Thank you for listening. Now we see in a mirror dimly, kind of like through all these screens we're communicating through right now, but then face to face. And someday I look forward to seeing you all face to face. All right. Thank you all for listening. Beam me up, Cornell.
Wow, thank you so much, Nick. That was amazing. Lots to talk about, a lot to talk about. So I hope if you're tuned in on YouTube that you will kind of come on over to Zoom so that we can all talk and share. And I figure some of you will have some interesting things to share about Nick's talk. So look for the Zoom link in the chat box, and we'll see you there. I think I'm supposed to do the closing chant while we're here. Cornell is saying. So just in case some of you have something else you need to do, we'll do the closing chant. Countless beings we vow to free, ceaseless afflictions we vow to end, limitless truth doors we vow to open, the deepest paths of awakening we vow to realize. Thank you. See you in Zoom.
All right, saying goodbye to those of you on YouTube. The link is in the chat window. And hello to Billy, Alex, and Julie, and Angela, who all dropped in. And so come join us over on Zoom, and we'll see you later on YouTube. If you're already on Zoom, hang tight.
Nick, I have